This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, you're encouraged to like and share them on Facebook. It's time for the African American Scene, presented each week at this time by Howard Insurance in Port St. Lucie and hosted by Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. Well, again, we have a lot going on. Boy, I'll tell you what. I'm getting to be. I'm an old codger now, and I just don't remember a year with so many topsy-turvy moments as we've had this year. It's been very, very interesting. We're going to have an open mic night tonight, and if you have some leftover concerns from last week that you would like to drop on me, I'd be more than happy to entertain them. And as I always do, if I know the answer, I will answer. If I have an opinion, I will give you that. And if I don't, I will say so. Okay. Now, and the number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. That is for the call-in. If you want to call in and you have something to say. Let me tell you my topics for tonight. And if this is the first time you listen to the show, usually what I do is I'll give you a list of topics, and then I'll go back and get into some of those topics in greater detail, and then I welcome you to comment on those topics. Number one, while there seem to be some misgivings about Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter is really growing in popularity. It is now up to about 60% of the people in the country are supportive of it. Where are you at with that? I know some of you are really opposed to it, and I'm not sure exactly why, but we can talk about that. Item number 2. The Jason Blake killing in Kenosha, Wisconsin. That's pretty interesting. And there's already been a big backlash from that, including the Milwaukee Bucks refusing to play last night in protest to what happened to Mr. Blake. Item number 3. Slave owners received reparations. I started with that last week. I bet you many of you didn't even know that. The slave owners actually received reparations. And I can't remember the guy's name, but there was one member of Congress who was kind of opposed to that. He felt if anybody deserved reparations, it was the slaves whose labor had been taken for all of those years, but they gave the slave owners reparations. I'll welcome any thoughts you have on that, because I know a lot of people have strong feelings about reparations, and I have mixed feelings about reparations, to tell you the truth. And the final one is the history of policing. I started talking about that last week. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the history of policing. I think it's a worthy discussion, and let me just say this to you. I think we need to talk about it because, like our economic system is broken. Now. I know some of you going to call up and say, well, I'm not going to be a socialist. Okay, don't be a socialist. I'm not asking you to be a socialist. What I'm suggesting to you is there is some fix that needs to be done to our economic system. It is broken. It is badly broken. And there are solutions out there that you can apply to make it a more equitable economic situation. And I know when you hear that word equitable, for many of you that sends you into a tizzy about equality, but there is no reason to have the gross disparities and inequalities that our system seems to foment in the way our economic activity is conducted. Now, for all of you who have called up to me at one point or another and said, no socialist system has ever worked, never will work, and is antithetical to everything we stand for in America. I go with goes against everything we stand for in America. But would you call China a failure? That's a communist system. Is that a failure? I'm waiting. Are you going to tell me that system doesn't work at all? So here's what I would say to you. And be thoughtful for a second. I am not suggesting under any circumstances that we subscribe to a Chinese philosophy as far as our economic activity is concerned. What I am suggesting to you is there are some elements of that economic system that we might be able to apply to our system to make it more equitable.
You mean perhaps something like ancient Chinese medicine, healthcare? We call it alternative, but you talk to folks who see Dr. Shipe, and they swear by it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe they know something that we have yet to learn. We haven't been around as long as they have.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think Americans in general, especially the old codgers in my age group, detest change.
Oh yeah.
Don't change anything.
Just now getting used to it.
Yeah, everything's fine. Don't budge. Don't change anything. So and that seems to be the order of the day. Don't want to change. Don't change. Well, you know what? Everything changes. We evolve. Just think about all the changes in automobiles in our lifetime. Think about how they've changed. You now have, I have a 4-cylinder engine in my Equinox that is faster than the V8 I had in my old 68 Mercury Cougar, right?
Oh, no. The truth hurts, though. Yeah.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
My little 4-cylinder.
I've seen these little 3-cylinder cars that do amazing things.
Yeah. My 4-cylinder SUV could outperform my 68 Cougar. And that baby was hot. That thing would roll, but my little 4-cylinder. So what was that? That was an evolution. Technology evolved. It made the engine more efficient, so you could do more with less. The worst thing about it is as kids growing up, we would pull a car up into the driveway, and all of us would get our tools and stand out there and work on it. And you can't do that anymore because the doggone space under the hood, you got to have all special tools just to get at all the nuts and bolts that are inside the car. But anyway, so there is a evolution that is natural, that will evolve. It's just going to evolve, and there's no need to fight that. You can embrace it and help to make it better by embracing it. rather than resisting it. Now, let's talk about how the popularity of Black Lives Matter has increased since like 2015. It really has. You know, initially, that movement was underwater. There was more people against it than there were for it. But it's now changed, and now we have roughly 60% of the people are for Black Lives Matter. And we got Winnie on line one. Yes, Winnie.
Yeah, I can't hear you. There's a bad signal or something on the radio.
You can't hear you can't hear me at all?
Not much.
Are you in Port St. Lucie?
Fort Pierce.
Oh, our transmitter, our little tiny transmitter is in Port St. Lucie.
I'm right here on Orange Avenue.
Yeah, you probably get a little interference from all the other wires and everything on the poles and stuff. But just go ahead and talk to Rudy though, because you're on his show right now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find out what he's talking about. I know she said something about Black Lives Matter or something.
Yes, I did.
What you think about that guy got shot in the back like that? And she might be paralyzed.
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, I that's one of my topics for tonight. I think that is tragic. That was very tragic. They shot that man at point blank range 7 times, and in the back, yes.
In the back.
In the back. That's bad.
They need to make the BLM
hope they
bigger.
can arrest them cops and sue them too.
Listen, now.
Well, Breonna Taylor, I heard, what happened? Why did it take so long to make an arrest?
Because
the
tactic that they use is that they try to delay to let the heat die down on the situation. That's what they did with Tamir Rice. If you can postpone it for months and months and months and months, some of the temperature goes down on the situation, and then they can move it along pretty much the way they want to without a whole lot of contention. So I believe that's what's happening with Breonna Taylor. That to me is an open, shut case. There's really nothing to talk about. They broke into that lady's house. It was the wrong house. The person they were looking for, they already had, and then they killed her.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It's just, I'm sorry. That's just, there's really nothing to think about. I don't even know why they're still having this big prolonged
that's what LeBron James opener was saying. It's taking so long.
Yeah.
And that attorney general, he a black guy, isn't he? Ain't he supposed to have some kind of say so over there? Attorney general. He's a black guy.
Yes. In Michigan, I don't know about in Kentucky.
Oh, I thought over in Kentucky.
Yeah, she Breonna Taylor was in Kentucky.
What do you think about Republican convention, Donald Trump? Them? Yeah.
Well, I don't think a lot of it because it seems to be very dark and not very hopeful. But nevertheless, it is what it is. So.
Yeah, you're right about that. But really, I don't care who really wins, and go for it. Joe Biden or Donald Trump. I don't care. But I am gonna vote.
Okay.
I don't care. I don't care.
Okay.
That's how you win. Go for it.
Okay. All right, Winnie. I got another call.
All right, we'll be talking. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Yes, Steve.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
All of your subjects tonight are valid. I think they can all be summed up into one thing. We are all Americans.
Yes.
And we have a Constitution that we abide by.
Yes.
Now, whatever demented thought that you have outside of that constitutional is up to you. Keep it to you. But these people now have decided that they're going to have a classes of Americans. The old system of class citizenship. Well, that can't be. We either have to be America or we're not going to be a democracy at all.
Well, yes.
People don't understand that.
No. Listen, I've been seeing it for some time, moving to what you're talking like a caste system. We're moving toward a caste system, and I think that is because that would allow certain groups of people to maintain power. If you
I've written about it for years. I call it fascism. It's just now to me fascism.
Yeah.
The rich trying to control the poor.
Yes.
Through whatever fear, retaliation, violence, whatever.
Yes.
But the folks who don't understand is since 1964, factual. People of color have outnumbered they're white, 2-1.
Most people don't understand it, Steve. They don't. They can't see it.
They have the power, but they don't use it.
No. Well, no. You're right. Because if everybody I'm reading a book right now called Dying of Whiteness. And it's written by this guy, Jonathan Metzl, I think his last name is. And in that book, he explores, I'm on the final part of the book. He goes through Missouri, then he goes through Texas, and now he's going into Kansas. And what he's attempting to do is by examining various issues in those particular places, is show white people they have been voting and acting against their own self-interest. And while they thought they was hurting other groups, they're really hurting themselves. And he points out specifically how they have been hurt by some of the positions that they have taken. And I think it's kind of fascinating, and I think everybody should read the book because he does a really thorough job of examining, like in Missouri, he looked at the gun issue, and in I'm sorry, it was Tennessee. In Tennessee, he looked at the health issue and how they were voting against the Affordable Care Act, and there was people in the room where he was doing the interviews suffering like the devil from various ailments, but still thought the Affordable Care Act was terrible and they would not support it.
For years I've written, and I'm getting a PhD now. So what my paper is on is tribal America. And that's just one of the points that I'm pointing out, is there are people that are so brainwashed, for a common denominator of language, they're so brainwashed to think one way, they can sit there and actually look at the person suffering and say, I can't vote for Obamacare that would help you because I've been told that you'll move into my neighborhood and open up a bed and breakfast or whatever. But it's stupid. We are all Americans. We have to depend on each other or we're done.
Yeah.
That's simple.
I
tell people, read Mein Kampf. Read the Fourth Reich. That's the key word, read. Don't get your little handy-dandy computer out and play a game or chat. Go look up some facts. Go look up some questions.
Oh, yeah.
Find some answers.
I've been saying that for years on the radio. People are mentally lazy. Just lazy.
That's what America's about. It's about progress and moving forward through people's reading and being innovative and finding out facts they didn't know.
Yep.
We don't do that anymore.
Well,
if we can't have sports, the Bucks canceled their game tonight.
Yes, I saw that.
Protest of that man being shot 7 times in the back.
I know.
Will we have that brown shirt and that recent style?
Hey,
that's what I'm saying. The fascism right now has to be stopped. These guys coming out of the woods, the police brown bozos, coming out party with those torches and acting like a bunch of neo-Nazis. That's got to stop. I mean, our grandfathers died fighting Nazis and, fighting fascism and fighting all that. And we're going to let it take rebirth in our generation? I don't think so.
Hey, Steve, let me tell you something. When I saw him get shot like that, the tears ran down my face. It hurt me.
And he's not the first one to be shot in the back 7 times. Walter Scott was too.
Walter Scott.
Yeah, in the back 7 times with a .40 caliber.
And they even caught the cop throwing down a throwdown weapon on the scene after Walter Scott was shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in law enforcement. I can't imagine what kind of a life-threatening situation that officer was put in. They had to shoot somebody in front of his children 7 times in the back.
That's horrible. Those kids.
stunned.
Those kids are messed up.
Oh yeah.
For the rest of their life.
Yeah. Their perception of police officers is not good.
That 8-year-old that was sitting back there, who was old enough to absorb all of that, he is messed up.
What about the 5,000 Mexican kids in cages? You don't think they're messed up for life?
Oh, yes, they are.
Now we got 5,000 people that are growing up looking for revenge on America. That's brilliant.
Listen,
that's brilliant.
I don't know. We gotta. Well,
if you grew up in a cage, would you be a little ticked off that you're imprisonment?
Oh my God, yes.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. And here's a statistic, and I love the United States Bureau of Statistics. The 7, 8, 9, and 10-year-olds age group right now, in 10 years, will be basically in control of this country's vote.
I saw that.
Yes.
Yes,
now,
I saw that. The 7
will be 17, but they'll be leaning on the vote, and we know how they're going to vote that next time.
Yes,
but
I saw that.
Yeah. People don't understand that the minority control has been in effect since '64.
Yeah.
We just haven't been suppressed and whatever. But the new baby boomer vote, I guess you could call it, is all people of color. They're outnumbering the whites 2 to 3 to 1.
Well, I think part of what this anger is all about is, and most people don't understand this, but I know you do. In 2008, when Obama won, that was the first time in the history of this country the white majority did not control the outcome of the election.
Yes. And I thought we finally came into the 21st century.
Yes, so that was a shocker, I think, to many people, because it was the blacks, the Hispanics, and the Asians pushed him over the top.
And you remember the argument how we were going to have riots in the streets, they were going to take your guns, everybody's going to be a socialist and communist.
Yeah.
Look what happened. You took the economy from 6,500 stock market to 18,500.
Yeah.
Jobs came down. The country started running smooth. We got Obamacare. We got people now, 40 million people who got insurance. I'm talking at the emergency room and bankrupting the hospitals. And Trump just wants to undo it all.
Because he hates.
So let's go back to chaos.
He hates Obama, and I think it's more. I think it's more of a jealousy than hate. Because
yes, absolutely.
Obama,
a black man outdid what I did. Oh my God! You got to remember, Trump had 2 years of House, Senate, presidency, and all technical aspects of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
On his side, he couldn't have vetoed anything that he did, and he did nothing in 2 years except unsuccessfully try to build a wall where he got to rebuild the old parts that were already there.
Well, Steve, I got to let
but
you
other
go.
Than that, nothing. Well, he did destroy our democracy almost.
Yeah. Steve, I got to let
That's
you go.
That's the World Health Organization. That was smart.
Okay.
In a pandemic.
Thank you for your call, Steve. Faithful listener.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I think that was just people. Do you know, and I've told people this, and when I tell people this and they go look it up, they find out that I was correct. Obama never got 50% of the white vote. He never cracked 50%. And he won both times. And I think that really, really upset some people, because for the first time they said, wait a minute, I couldn't control the outcome of this situation. No, you can't. And you know what? You have a little more control this time, but 4 years from now, your control's going to go down again. It's going to go down, down, down. That's the way it's going to be, because we are going to be a melting pot. That's just, America's going to be what it said was in its mind's eye and when it was created. We are going to be a melting pot of people. So, but isn't that interesting?
We're all in the soup.
Yeah, we are.
But what makes a good soup? Ingredients.
Absolutely.
A wide variety of ingredients.
And good seasoning.
That's why using that melting pot as an example is a good analogy.
It
it's
is.
Really good.
It really is. It really is. And we're going to be that. And you know what? And believe it or not, it's not going to kill you. If you want to get let me give you something to think about. You think you know who we are? Let me tell you who we are. When Dylan Roof killed those 9 people in South Carolina, and they said they forgive him, boy, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that you, the relative of that deceased person, could stand up and say, you forgive him? When that man was shot in his apartment in Texas, okay, and they sentenced that young lady, his brother went up and hugged her. Does that tell you something about us? He hugged her. And the judge, who was black, hugged her. When that lady's son died the other day in Wisconsin, she prayed for the police and asked everybody, please, my son would not want you to be violent. Does that tell you something about who you're so worried about us doing some bad things to you? But if you look at the evidence is contrary to that. We're probably harder to each other than we are to anybody else. But if you want to talk about that, that tells you a little bit about who black people are. Because most of us, not all of us, but most of us were raised in the church.
Well, being able to forgive has something to do with that.
That's absolutely right. Yes.
I mean, you can tell there are folks out there that just don't believe in the forgiveness part. So they cut that part out and forget it.
Yeah.
And they stay hateful their whole lives. And they miss out on the greatness they can achieve by just loving one another.
How many of you could have done what Dylan Roof's victims did and stand up there and say, I forgive you, when he cold-blooded shot those people in the house of worship? Could you have done it?
I wonder what it's like for him to have to live with that now. You know, because the reason somebody would do that would be to generate some hatred.
Yeah.
And what did it do for him? He saw something in the people who found forgiveness for him. And he's got to live with that now.
Yes, he does. That's got to wear on his soul that he took those lives and those people stood up there and they said, "I forgive you."
It's not the expected outcome.
No, not many people. Listen, I've made no bones about the fact that I'm a believer. I'm not sure I could have done that. I'm gonna be very honest. I'm not sure I could have done. Maybe I could have, but I'm not sure that I could have done that if somebody had killed my sister like that, and then, or my son, or my wife, and then stand up there and say, "I forgive you." I don't know. I don't know if I could have done it. I'd like to think that I could, but I'm not sure that I could have. But in any event, so let's talk a little bit about we talked a little bit about Black Lives Matter, and let's go back onto this history of policing. I guess most of you, since nobody's calling in, I guess they're telling me to some extent
They're learning and they're listening.
that my voice is not coming through clearly on some channels, I guess, huh?
I have no idea, but because everything sounds fine in here, the levels are fine, and Winnie said that she was having some trouble, and there's a lot of factors that can interrupt AM radio signals. However, now we have something Google Home and Alexa can pick up on, which is a tune-in app for your phone, where we a crystal clear, crisp signal at all times, round the clock. Just go to WPSL.com. There's a red button. You click on there. Or to look for the TuneIn app. Go to your Google Play Store, download and install the TuneIn app for your phone, and then set it on WPSL 1590. We're right in there, and whatever shows on the air, it says right on your phone what you're listening to. The African American Scene with Rudy Howard right now.
Okay. Now, I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts about the shooting of Jason Blake? We've talked about it a little bit. Steve and I talked about it. I haven't heard anybody else out there. Again, that number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590.
Well, I hear people out there complaining about Black Lives Matter, but the problem is this guy got shot in the back 7 times, and he's not the first one for the exact same situation. Walter Scott, also another fellow that was he was running
away.
He was running away, and he was shot 7 times. And then the person who had shot the video with their cell phone also caught the officer. Another officer had walked up, and the original officer walked onto the scene and dropped a weapon next to the body.
Yes.
And it was just as plain as could be. It was a gun. He dropped a gun right there. They call that a throwdown.
Yeah.
Throwdown weapon. That's what they throw down when they know they messed up, and so they got to try to make themselves look a little better by making it look like the suspect had a weapon in his hand at the time he was shot, and he didn't.
Well, that's what they're saying about Jason Blake, and I've looked at that. I think I watched that video like 10 times.
Yeah.
And I never saw a weapon. I did hear a police officer say, "Drop the knife." But, I've also heard police officers say, "Stop resisting arrest," while they're beating the living tar out of somebody.
Yeah.
And they're saying, "Don't resist arrest," but the person's not resisting arrest.
No, the reaction, body's reaction to the punches and stuff.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah.
You're still resisting. We're going to keep doing this.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
This is great. This is a great thing to teach our children about. And when police officers come to their school to see them, some of them are going to be terrified, because don't think the kids don't pick up on all this stuff
Sure
that we talk about.
Sure they do.
They're very aware of what's going on.
But I listen, and let me say this too, because I've said this before. There are some good police officers out there, very good police officers. Some of them are my friends. And I have retired friends who are police officers, so I am not anti-police, but they have got to do better than what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Because some of these things are just not justifiable. They had Jason Blake buy his T-shirt, and there was 2 or 3 more officers standing around. They could have pulled him by his T-shirt out of the car. Okay.
Did the officer have one hand on the suspect and the other hand on the gun?
Yes.
That's not policy. They can't do that. I had a friend of mine who graduated from West Point. He was way up there on the sheriff's department for many years. And there was an incident down by the Roosevelt Bridge. They chased a suspect all the way down there, and they were apprehending him when one of the officers shot him. And when I was trying to understand this, my friend, his name was Mike, he told me, he says, cross your arms. And he grabbed both of my hands. He crossed his arms too. And he says, now, all of a sudden, right now, squeeze your right hand. And it was like, it was confused for a second. Well, what he was trying to point out to me, if an officer has his hand on the suspect, he can't have his hand on the gun at the same time. If he's pointing a gun at an officer, the other officer has to come in and cuff him. It's not a policy to handle the suspect with one hand and the gun with the other. You can't. That's policy.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And but when somebody's running away or just merely turns their back, that's why I said earlier, you need to make the 3 letters bigger so that folks can see it. Make a bigger piece of art or something to express this.
And what really freaks me out is with everything going on, you would think that judgment would have kicked in and said, I better be a little bit more careful now that there's such a scrutiny on how we are conducting ourselves.
Yeah.
You would think there would have been some level of caution that would just be up inside of him because of everything that's happening. But
and even more so now because the whole world is watching. Everybody's got a cell phone with a camera in it.
That's right. That's right.
We can all see what's going on.
That you can't get away with that anymore because, like you said, everybody's got a cell phone with a camera in it. So, but in any event, again, the number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. Okay.
Well, some things just can't be argued, I guess.
Yeah, I think most people. I've run into a couple now already on Facebook.
Yeah.
That were prepared to fight. They said he should have listened. And then I had another one that said he had a bad record. And I said, what did his record have to do with what happened to him?
Yeah.
The cop didn't see his record when he unloaded 7 shots in him. That's dirty up the victim after the fact.
Yeah.
No, that's ridiculous. No. But anyway.
Shame is the word. It's a great big shame.
It is. It is, absolutely. And listen, I think the vast majority of people have now seen enough and said, no, we have to do something different. And what I am suggesting is we do have to do something different. I don't want to defund the police. I don't want to do away with police departments. But I want to have some handcuffs, not physical handcuffs, but mental handcuffs put on police for how they behave. They need to have some limitations imposed on them so that they can't come into a situation like Superman and think they can do whatever they need to do. They should be able to do whatever they need to do to protect themselves and control the situation, but they can't allow themselves to let their ego get them in trouble, because a lot of times it's the ego. It's, I'm the officer, I told you to do something, do what I told you to do, and don't ask me any questions.
Well, basically, if you just you have to go along with what the officer is expressing to you, because for some reason he pulled you over or whatever. But on the other hand, there's got to be some background screening, deep psychological background screening, because there's the stuff that's in these guys' heads that do this. It's buried deep in there, and it got in there somehow a long time ago. They need to find out, what have these guys been through? Check them out for their whole lives, not just the last 3 years, like a regular background check, but we're talking about somebody who's going to have people's lives in their hands, So they might as well be screened properly.
Yeah. Well, I think I told you this before, but one of my friends who shall remain nameless that's in the police force told me that frequently guys get hired who in high school were bullied by people.
Yeah.
And now they're on the police force.
The bullies or the people that were bullied?
The people that were bullied.
Because I always thought that, bullies are somebody they should screen early and find them and groom them for military and law enforcement.
Yeah.
That's what we need in there, But,
but
they got to be taught properly how to properly follow procedure. So
well, and the other thing that they have to be of the community.
Yeah.
Okay, not necessarily have to live directly in the community, but they have to be of the community.
Right. They have to know the streets where they live.
Right. So you're going to if you take a nice little suburban white kid and put him in the Bronx, and he's never been to the Bronx in his life, he's going to be scared to death most of the time. He's going to be going through there scared to death because he's not used to that environment.
And if he's not used to that environment and grows up, you don't give him a gun and a badge and say, go for it. You can't.
No, he's got to. So you got to have somebody that knows this, that's not afraid of the Bronx, that's familiar with the streets, and that,
You got to know the difference between somebody talking to you and communicating with you than somebody that's attacking you.
Yeah. And I was with one of my good buddies not long ago, and he said sometimes when he shows up on the scene, because he's from around here, and they go to arrest somebody, the guy will say, I'll let him put the handcuffs on me, but I won't let him put the handcuffs on me. So a lot of times he's the one that gets the handcuffs to put on him, because that's what the offender has said, that they want him to put the handcuffs on him. So whatever. But okay. No.
Wasn't a call. It was a technical report.
Okay. So let's go back to the history of 1838. And I listened to my tape, and I said 1938. I first said 1838 the first time, and the second time I said 1938. But the first police department was created in 1838 in Boston. Okay. And prior to that, there had been hundreds of people who had been used as officers to help hunt runaway slaves. And the original origin of the police, well, today when we think about police, we think of protect and serve. But the origins of the police was that they were there to protect rich folks' property from people of ill repute that were in the community. So that was the original intention. That was the initial reasoning for the police. And then as it further developed, they used the police in the North to control union strife. So walkouts and various kinds of things, they use the police to help them control those situations. But in those earlier years, like I said, there was hundreds of people that were used in a police capacity in order to help corral slaves. Now, the guy who is supposedly like the modern father of policing is Augusta Vollmer. Augusta Vollmer was the one that kind of brought the police forward into its current situation. Vollmer was in Berkeley, and he was the police chief in Berkeley, California, in 1905. And he went around the country advising police departments on how best to conduct policing. And one of the things that Vollmer talked about early on was he was very aggressive in his interrogation techniques. He called them his third degree techniques. And he was very tolerant of the application of these techniques against minorities and the poor, but he was not in favor of using those very techniques against the middle and upper class white folks. So, as you can see, my God, this goes all the way back to 1905, and here we are in 2020, and that just goes to show you that's how that was starting. So, fast forward, that was the basis upon which most of the departments were developed all across the United States from this guy, Augustus Vollmer. So, and he further helped people set up the administrations for their police, the hierarchy, lieutenants, sergeants, captains, etc., and also helped to construct the wages that police would get paid. So, as we can see, the police evolved, but not a whole lot. Because as I just pointed out to you, even in its earliest stages, there was some disparity in how the application of justice and interrogation was applied to different groups. There was one set of interrogation techniques that was applicable to minorities, and then there was another set of interrogation techniques that was applicable to white folks. So I found that kind of interesting, and I think most people never even think about the history of policing, so that was pretty good. And just again, the reminder is that there's this current heavy-duty discussion about reparations and whether you think they should or shouldn't be. There is a place in North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, where they approved reparations. Believe it or not. In Asheville, North Carolina, they have approved reparations for the black people in that community. That's a pretty upscale place in the mountains where they do a lot of skiing and hiking and things like that. But and I've asked my brother-in-law, who lives in North Carolina, about what actually has happened thus far, and he wasn't able to tell me. He hadn't heard anything, but that is, in fact, something that had happened in North Carolina. And remember, here's the important thing I want you to remember. Slave owners received reparations. 1862, up to $300 per slave. They were compensated by virtue of the act signed by Abraham Lincoln. So I would have to tell you that that's the show for tonight. And so I would like to thank you guys so much for listening in.
Oh, yeah.
God bless.
We can do this again next week. We can invite the callers at 340-1590. You can present the subjects and the topics, and they can do what they usually do. Thank you, Rudy. Take care. Rudy Howard with the African American Scene, Wednesday nights in the 6 o'clock hour, right here on Digital 1590, WPSL. It's one of the many reasons why we are the talk of the Treasure Coast.